Welcome to day 143. We are in 1 Kings 8 and 2 Chronicles 5 and 6. Some neat little tidbits today to talk about. So let's get at it. I found this reading interesting, the choice of words interesting, and that's why I'm going to mention it. The cherubim in the temple spreading its wings over the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so listen to what I just said. 1 Kings 8. Verse 7. Let's see here, verse 7. The cherubim spread their wings over the ark, forming a canopy over the ark and its carrying poles. Okay? So, the question is, did the inanimate objects that were built spread their wings, or were they already built that way and they put the ark in there? The way it reads is that the cherubim spread their wings. And I don't understand why that's such a hard thing to grasp. God can do anything, so why not do that? I mean, in the end times, Satan's going to indwell the statue that they make of him, and he's going to talk through it. So I don't see why that's such a far-fetched thing to think that the cherubim actually did that. And it probably wasn't strange to the Israelites. So whether it did or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, now, the cloud of the presence, 8:11. Okay, sorry, I keep switching pages here. 8:11. The priest could not continue their service because of the cloud, for the glorious presence of the Lord filled the temple of the Lord. How amazing would that have been to sit there, and then all of a sudden, the priest can't even continue because the cloud is so dense inside and so thick they can't see. Of course, to the Israelites, that's not a big deal because they were led out of Egypt with a cloud of pillar of smoke, pillar of a cloud or smoke, whatever, through the day, and a pillar of fire at night. So again, and then what happens is you go to 2 Chronicles and you read the same stories. Why do you read both? So let me address that. I said something about that early on in the studies. And I just heard this again on the radio yesterday. It's funny that, it's not funny. God gives you these little insights throughout the day. And if you listen and you're focused on God all day long, you will get some things. I'm not saying you're going to hear God's voice. I'm saying it's funny to see how God is moving things in your life. And you can have a little chuckle about it. So it's kind of great to have that happen. But on the radio, it was saying police officers will interrogate people. Interrogate's kind of a rough word. Question people at a scene. What they do is they separate them. They don't keep them together, and they separate them and they ask them the stories. And if people are being genuinely honest, the stories are going to somewhat match up. If the stories are perfect, the police officers don't believe them. If every detail is exactly the same, if everybody's saying exactly the same thing, there's something wrong. But if the story behind the story is the same, then there's credibility. So they fight through all the little things, like somebody thought they saw something. And yeah, you thought you saw something. They were 6 feet tall. Maybe they were 5'10". 5'8", I don't know, because you were on the ground looking up as they were leaving the door. Who knows? And the other people were standing there. The thing is that you both said there was a person that came in, robbed you, and they ran out the door. Okay? That's the key point. And so in 1st and 2nd Chronicles is the reiteration of what actually is happening in the history records with what they're writing down for the history, if you want to think of it that way. And the stories are very similar, but you'll find a couple things that are a little bit different. That doesn't mean the Bible's wrong. You need to look at the actual story behind the story. So now we get to the future stuff, and this is why I really do this, because this is where we want to know what's going to happen. But the future I'm talking about here is the future that Solomon is praying about that's going to happen to Israelites. And then also pertains to the last century here. 8:33 through 34, okay? If your people Israel are defeated by their enemies, they haven't been defeated. But he is trying to make, Solomon's got wisdom here, and he's praying to God. If your people Israel are defeated by their enemies because they have sinned against you, and they turn to you and acknowledge and name your name and pray to you in this temple, then hear from heaven and forgive their sin of your people Israel, and return them to this land you gave their ancestors. Now let's skip forward here. We'll do that in a second. Anyway, the point is he's already praying for something, and it's not any different than us praying for our children, saying, Lord, please bring them a spouse that is a Christian person, that is undoubtedly a great person. But here's an issue. He's praying that if they screw up, bring them back. So we should pray for our children and say, when they make mistakes, Lord, forgive them when they ask for it, and punish them accordingly. That brings them back to you. All right, we're going to come back to that thought here in a minute. Future of others. 8:41 through 43. In the future, foreigners who do not belong to your people, Israel, will hear of you. They will come from distant lands because of your name. For they will hear of your great name and your strong hand and your powerful arm. And when they pray toward this temple, when the foreigners pray, then hear from heaven where you live and grant what they ask of you. In this way, all the people of the earth will come to know and fear you, just as your own people Israel do. They too will know that this temple I have built honors your name. So here's just kind of a foreshadowing of saying, hey, it's not just God's people that can come to know God. What a great thing. All right. Chapter 8, verse 46. Separate from 46 through 51. So different thought here. If they sin against you, and who has never sinned? What wisdom Solomon has said there is great. Everyone sins. Only Jesus is the one who has never sinned. Everyone sins, and everyone can get forgiveness. All right, now let's move on. Future repentance and the return. This is the last point, and a great point it is, and what so many things hinge on. If they sin against you, and who has never sinned, you might become angry with them and let their enemies conquer them and take them captive to their land far away or near. And a couple times the Israelites were exiled, some of them, and then eventually all of them to Babylon. But in that land of exile, they might turn to you in repentance and pray, we have sinned, done the evil, and acted wickedly. If they turn to you with their whole heart and soul in the land of their enemies and pray toward the land you gave to their ancestors, toward the city you have chosen, and toward this temple I have built to honor your name. Stop. So as Esther was prepared for a time such as this, in that land, Esther and Nehemiah goes to the king. King says, hey, what's wrong? Oh, I just don't, I'm sad about my people being exiled. And the grandson of Esther and the king, Artaxerxes, we'll read it, says, go back to your land and prepare the temple. Do what you want to do, and then come back. And he does that. And what a great thing. So in that time when people pray, bring them back to the land. Hear their prayers and their petition from heaven where you live, and uphold their cause. Forgive your people who have sinned against you. Forgive all the offenses they have committed against you. Make their captors merciful to them. And there were plenty of kings that took them captive and were abusive, but then there were captives that were merciful to them. For they are your people, your special possession, whom you brought out of the iron smelting furnace of Egypt. What a crazy thing to think of this time where King Solomon is praying about a future time that he doesn't even know. It's not a prophecy. It's just, if this happens, and all the things, the plagues and all this other stuff that he talks about, it's an amazing thought that he was so wise to pray about something that he didn't even know was going to happen. What an amazing thing. I just find that fascinating. And then we're going to go into the prophets eventually, hopefully in the next few months, and get to hear about what is actually happening, what happens. And May 15th, 1948, they get their land back in one day, book of Isaiah. And that's what it's talking about. They get their land back after a horrible dictator, Hitler, Mussolini, have come against them and killed millions of them. God gives them their land back in one day because they turned their hearts. But think about that. In Deuteronomy, we talked about being punished 7 times over. 7 again. We talked about that back in Deuteronomy and Numbers, and all that time leading up to May 15th, 1948. Whether or not that's an exact date, I'm not doubting God. It probably is, but our calendar's been changed. So we ought to trust that what he said in here is exact. Anyway, it's awful close to that time. And they got their land back in one day. So we're going to read that in Isaiah in the next few months. So that is your day 143. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.